All right, welcome back. We are Game 2014 in the fall 2020 semester, and it's week 14, part 2 of our broadcast. We're going to talk about how to recall a platform and maybe do some refactoring, and then we'll end off the day with a little bit of thoughts about the exam. Okay, so let's get to it. So I'm just going to bring up my Unity project one more time. So one of the challenges we have is how do we bring a platform back when the character dies? So there's some thoughts. So one thought is we create a series of additional triggers. So an example would be, let's say I die. Upon death, right, the platform is recalled back to where it is, right? So that's one way of doing it. So all platforms get reset back to the starting point once a character dies. That's definitely a way of doing it, right? And I think that might be the easiest way. Having a switch, some kind of lever, and again I was exploring, what if we had a lever like this? How would you activate it? Would you run over it? Would you have to press a button, jump on it? I mean, there's a lot of other interactions you'd have to think about. And might be the simplest way is when the character dies, all platforms get reset back to the platform start. Okay, so that's something that I recommend. And then we'll do some refactoring afterwards. So let's do that. So on character death, so when the character respawns, how do I signal each of the platforms to reset? That's the first thing. So we have a series of platforms, moving platforms, and we need to do that. We could do a Unity event. Yeah, we could do that. I know you mentioned that before too, Michael. We create our own event in order for it to trigger. But let's think about it even simpler, right? So we have these moving platforms, and we have a series of them. We know we're going to respawn, and the respawn is going to happen based on character death. So if I go, that's going to trigger it, right? So again, let's think about the triggers, right? So I'm going to go back to player, and I'm going to look at the player behavior, and let's see when it happens. So the player dies, lose life as an example, and when the player loses life, this is where the respawning happens. Transform.position is equal to spawn point.position. This right here, when lives are still greater than 0, would be the place where either we send a message, or reset somehow. Okay, so this is where you put your event, right here, when upon death, right? And we want to make it so that we have a mechanism already. The start position of each of the platforms is what we want them to all reset back to, because we don't know which one it was. We could also combine, make relationships between the platforms and the particular platform the player died from, or the nearest platform. There's lots of ways this can be done. It needs more structure, all right? So that's something that can be done as well. But somehow or another, the player's got to signal something. I don't want to signal all the platforms. That doesn't make sense, right? So it'd be nice if we signal one location, and we have that mechanism already. We have at least a place to signal, which would be the game controller. The game controller itself has very little in it right now, right? And this could keep track of all the platforms. We could register the platforms. We could use the game controller for an audio manager. We've done things like that in the past. Let's do that. That'd be the simplest way of doing it. Again, Michael, if you'd like to explore Unity events, they're definitely a more advanced topic. We'll probably be handling next semester. But this semester here, we just want to keep it a little bit simple, so let's try and do that. So first of all, if we're going to handle this behavior, we want each platform to be listed as an array of moving platforms, right? Or a list of moving platforms. So we can do that. We can say that we have, we'll call it header moving platforms. Again, simple, keeping it simple. Public list of platform controller, right? Which we'll call moving platforms. Okay. And a couple ways we could do that. We could find all the moving platforms on start. That's not a bad way of doing it. Yep. So we can say something like moving platforms equals to find objects of type, moving platform controller, and we're going to assign all those to this. The problem is this returns an array, and this is a list. Well, if you really want to, you can always go to list, which would convert the array type to a list type. Now, why lists? Lists are great because you don't have to cycle through them and so on. So let's try this out first. Let's see if when I just do this, can I get a list of moving platforms? So if I run it, then if I look at game controller, moving platforms, I've got 3 of them. So really quick and dirty moving platform list. All right, cool. Couldn't you also add a condition to keep it moving if it's not at the start point? If players on the platform start moving, when player jumps off the platform and platform is at start position, stop. You could do that. You know, I'm just thinking of another way, but yeah, there's many ways to do the same thing, Alex. So yeah, so let's do this. So moving platforms is toList. I got this. One thing to note is I want to be able to reset the platform. So moving platform controller, I have a move, but I don't have a reset function. Let's make one so it'll be nice and quick. So public void reset. So when reset is called, then my transformed at position is going to be equal to my start position. Okay, nice and easy. That's what the reset will do. And I will call reset on the platforms, right, as an example, through the game controller, right? And so what I can do is I can make a function. Reset all platforms. I can just call it reset as well. That it'll reset all the platforms. All right. But for now, again, we're just taking care of what we need to take care of, and we can add to it or remove it from it later. So again, for each in moving platforms, for each platform in moving platforms, I can say that I want to do a platform dot reset. There we go. So that's what reset all platforms would do. Pretty simple. And what we can do is we can call that when player death happens. Anytime player death happens, which is here, I can just call. Now I need reference to the game controller for me to do this, right? So there's a couple ways we could do that. So looking at this list, I could explicitly make a call to the game controller and have a reference to it, or I could find the game controller in the game, get its component, get a reference to it, and then just do it manually. I'll do that this time around. So again, on death, I want to say that, hey, let's find object of type. Find object of type game controller. And what I want to do is I want to reset all platforms. So that's what the thing will be. It's like a one-liner. So I don't have to get a reference. Now if I did this a lot, let's say if I was dying, maybe it was something I was doing a lot, it might be something I might want to encapsulate in a kind of a permanent object that I only get a reference to once, right? But this is like a death. It may not happen that often, so and so it, or it doesn't happen often enough that it would deserve maybe its own variable. Because outside of this scope, this doesn't exist. All right, let's see if this works. So cool, and we'll run it. And let's see what happens if I just die. Does it cause an error? So no error. That's a good sign. And let's see if we can run across the platforms. Yep. And yep. We'll heal, do a bit of a speed run, go up the platform, and then what we'll do, now that we've passed things, is if I die, it should take me back to the bit. Well, that's not cool. Let's try it again. It's because we only did 3 health, right? So, oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yep, you can certainly use this too. Oh, darn it. Ah, that's annoying. Okay, I'm gonna cheat and grab my player and move them out because I'm a terrible platforming player. That's what I am, and that's it. And I don't want to fool around. I want to test a platform mechanic. And we can do several other tries. You can see how difficult this game is. It might be too difficult. I might want to reduce the number of enemies. There's a lot of tactics here. But it definitely tells me, like, if I can't do it, and I'm the maker, I know how it works, it might tell me that there's another way. Okay, so one thing to note is that I want to get at least to the other side. Yep, once I get to this part, then at least I have made and that's a problem, right? So let's try that again. Sorry, testing. Really annoying. I want to get to the other side, so I'll come back. I'll wait to come back. Now that he's gone. Or ride the platform to the other side, since there's no one there anymore. Alright, cool. So we passed by this thing and it's reset, right? And what if I ride this thing and this is the test and I die, I come back and it should be right there. So it's not up there anymore. So it's reset back to its place. Oh, now that is a bad part. That's not cool. See what happened there? So that is what I was looking for. I was looking for any kind of bugs that kind of were that came up, right? The other thing is that it took care of it from a player death perspective. So if I die, obviously then it'll come back. But it doesn't take care about it if, like what Alexander said, if I come back to that place, you know, and I've kind of gone below again, should there be a trigger or something to bring it back? So again, one thing to note is let's fix that reset. So the reset, it doesn't do everything. This is good, but let's just go to definition here for a second. Go to definition. And let's go to definition there. So yeah, this is okay, but what we should really do if we do this is also reset our timer. So our platform timer should start at 0. So that's something we forgot to do. Because then it's going to be in the wrong spot, it's going to remember where it was, and it's going to pop back up there as soon as we get back onto it, which is wrong. It shouldn't be like that. All right, so that's kind of another way of doing it. So this is definitely, so if we die, reset all platforms, that should be something that we have back. Now we should also make a recall, and the recall should happen as an example if there's no one on the platform and the platform's been kind of at the at somewhere in the middle for a while, it should start moving again on its own, right? Until it gets to the bottom. That might be a tricky way of doing it. So what I mean is, going back to this, let's suppose the character dies, or the character doesn't die. That's the other thing. The character doesn't die, but the platform, it goes across, right? And it stops right here, okay? But the character doesn't quite make it. Well, actually, in this case, it would be okay. But what about here? So here, the character doesn't die, but from here, he jumps off, right? Character doesn't die, so the way to do it is to die. So I can die, right? And then the platform will be reset. But that's kind of sucky. It'd be nice if, after some sort of time, if the platform is not at home base, it's not at start, and there's no player on top of it, you know, we may have another counter to kind of go back, you know, to the beginning. But the problem with that is it wouldn't work properly for all platforms. So, for example, imagine if I did it here and I wanted to backtrack, right? So it's here, I'm off of it, but it's not at the start position. And if it's not at the start position, then it's going to head back. So I think the answer is, if it's at the start, if it's not at the start, and if it's not at the end, if it's not at one of the ends, and by the way, this is a very precarious type of platform. Either we should make this platform larger, right? So that way there's a good chance you're not going to fall off of it. Only because there's a bit of a gap, and the running start, this character needs a bit of a running start to get to jump properly. You know, we may want to adjust this platform. Let's try and do this now, so we can modify the platform itself. So let's try it, and this is why I didn't make a prefab yet. Let's do a couple of changes, because I know that you know, when the platform is at the top, it can probably use another brick. Something like that. So we can extend this brick over a little bit, you know, something like that looks like this, and then copy number one. So Control D, right? Well, we can bring in this one up here and move this over. Great thing about platforms, once you have them, you know, connected, I can use V snapping. So if I press the V key when I'm moving something, it'll V snap everything onto the next brick. Same thing with this one. So I want to kind of make the bottom brick, move that over, and then kind of make another one over here. So the same one as this one right here. So that's this one. So Control D, and then move that over a little bit, and then kind of use the V key to V snap. It's called, you know, vertex snapping. Same thing with this one. So again, right? Vertex snapping. If I can do it properly. Come on. There we go. And the way to test that is that these numbers have to be exact. If it's like 2, you can also just do it where it's supposed to be. So 2. And you can see the numbers that would be on the platform. That should be 3. Otherwise, you're going to have a bit of separation, and it'll show up when you're playing the game. These are all good. Good. And now that I've modified this platform, this is kind of a longer platform, so a wider platform than the other one, but it still has the same script. And what we want to do is we want to run this moving platform. We want to change the collider, because the collider is only half as big, to make it so that the collider runs the whole length of the platform. Again, these platforms are not tiles. They're not part of the regular thing, but they're going to make it so that going up here is going to be a lot less precarious than if I was in here. And just to show you this also, if I want to hide the background just for a sec on this side, I got to be careful in that I probably have another brick space, you know, for this one. I can probably go even one more brick further, which is going to give me less of a gap, and I think that's probably even better than this. Let's do it one more time. So again, I want to kind of go into the platform itself. This one. Open it up. and then grab that bottom brick, move it over to where it's supposed to be approximately, and then grab this brick, that one, move that over to approximately where it's supposed to be, and then duplicate these bricks. So duplicate brick number 2, Control D, move it over, and then use vertex snapping to snap it in. V. Press the V key while you're moving it over. Same thing with, we're going to learn more about vertex snapping when we do 3D next semester. So put that over there, move that over, V, vertex snapping, and then we'll vertex snap these ones too. So 36, move it over just to make sure. And then finally number 2, move that over. And just a touch, and then that'll give us the vertex snapping. And then check the numbers. Check the numbers that they're not weird numbers, right? So that one's a weird number. It does the best it can do, vertex snapping, but it's not perfect. Sometimes you don't get exactly the number that you want, and it causes you to have a bit of separation in the top. And one more time, let's do the change the collider type, so we'll move that just ever so slightly outside this area. So now we made a much larger moving platform, but it's more comfortable for the player to jump from here to there. Still a bit of a gap, and if you're concerned, we can move the platform in the middle, but I'm quite comfortable with what we have. Not a bit of, it's not too much of a gap, so there's less fear that he won't make it or she won't make it up there. All right, so that's that, and we can test that out later on. But so we have a couple things. So one is the player can either be at the top or the bottom, the end or the beginning. If the player is at either one of those spots, as an example, when they jump or close to that spot, let's say within some threshold, right? And well, we should kind of create a threshold. Then the player should basically, the platform shouldn't move. Okay. However, if the platform's in the middle somewhere, the platform should continue. That's the easiest way. Okay? The platform should continue until it gets to one of the other spots, if there's no one on it. Okay? If that makes any sense. That's the easiest way. So let's change the platform behavior. And what we want to do is we want to create a threshold. So we'll say public float threshold. You could also call it offset, whatever you like, right? And we got to think about a threshold that makes sense. Now remember, this is a floating point number because we're talking about points on a grid. We don't know exactly how high it's going to go. So if the platform's within, let's say 0.1, I would like to try that threshold first. So if the platform's within 0.1 F, okay, that's the platform threshold that I would set at the beginning. If it's within that, then I'm okay with, comparing that. So we can check that. So move. If is active, it's only going to be active when the player is on it. If the player is not on it, it's going to be set to inactive. But else, I'm not active. Let's check to see. That means the player's not on it. Let's check to see that the platform, if the platform is at the top or at the bottom. If, first of all, how do you check that, right? So we're going to say if transform dot position, right, is, again, we're going to say within an absolute value, right? So we want to have within plus or minus this range, whether it's above or below somehow, right? Whatever that position is, shouldn't be above, but we don't know what the orientation of the platform is going to be. So we want to make it so that the difference between where the position is and the start or the end, as an example, is within 0.1. So we're going to say that transform dot position minus the start position, right? If we take that, and if it's less than the threshold, right, and we want to take the absolute value of this. So we're going to say that if mathf.abs, right? If I can spell mathf.abs, capital ABS, if the absolute value of this, right? And the problem with mathf.abs, we can also say magnitude as an example. That might be also something we want to do. Magnitude, or the distance between these two things, might be also something good. So we can say mathf dot, or vector3 dot distance between these two items, right? If the vector3 dot distance, right, is less than the threshold, okay, so distance between the two is less than the threshold, we're good. Or we're gonna retract this in a second. Or the vector3 dot distance between the position and the end position, okay, if that is less than the threshold, then that's a positive result, right? So these two are both within range, okay? So this is the condition that we check to see if platform is close enough to the start or the beginning or start or the end that things are good. How about if it's not, though, right? If it's not, then we want to do this. We want to continue to move the platform, right? That's what we want to do. So we're going to say, I put this here for a reason. I just put it here just so we can write it. But really, it's like this. If is active or not this, then move this, right? If it's active or if I'm not in the middle, right, then that's how I would. Now that's something we can do. Or if is active, do this. Else, if I'm not this, so I'm not active, but I'm not this, right? Then, and again, I can just simply put another bracket and not, if I really want to. So if it's not this, not one of these two cases, again, we can reverse this case, make it and. Both those have to be true in order for us to do it. So both this and this has to be true. But if I say if it's not this one, this condition, right? One of these two cases, right? Then, if it's not one of these, then I want to do this again. Okay? So, but only if it's not active. If it's active, don't touch this. Don't even look at this because I'm writing it. If it's active, I'm writing it. If it's not active, then check this, which is where it should be, down in here. Okay? So it's like I want to do the same thing, right? Platform.delta time, but only if it's not active. Let's see how this works, if it does work. So we can let it ride it out, in other words. All right, so here I'm at the bottom of the the platform. I notice that now it starts to ride, but maybe 0.1 is the wrong amount because it's moving on its own, and so is this. And that's not what we want, right? It's not active, but it's going to keep going if the distance is less than, so there's my threshold, 0. Let's put my threshold to something else. That's probably what the thing was, 0.1. And let's see how that looks now. So this one's okay, but this one, that wasn't close enough. So it's going to stop at one place or the other. And that's, we got to be careful and see what that is. So that is 0.1. 0.1 was good for this one, but not for this one, and not for this one. So it's going to be even closer than that. Okay, so let's try another number, 0.2. Oh, you know what I'm doing? Ha ha ha. Actually, 0.1 is right, but it's actually 0. Because it's not a prefab. We got to change this on the way out if we can. Let's see what happens. So platform, that's moving platform 1, and we want to do it on all of them. So we want to make this all the same. So the threshold should be always 0.1 on all of them. Let's see how that works. I thought 0.1 would have been fine, and looks like we're good with 0.1, right? So again, it works. You can see that it works already because we're good to go, right? All right, now let's go back to the scene and start writing these platforms and see what happens. So I'm writing them. It works, right? I'm here, and then, but if I die, you know, that's okay. It's going to reset. Ooh, that was like a double death. That was weird. What happened there? Oh, I know why. That was a double death. That's only because I didn't make it there. I never made it to the I never crossed the boundary there. Come on. Come on, you daddy. He's not going to make it. Write it out. Okay, maybe we won't write it out. Darn it. We'll just have to do it the hard way this time around. Let's see what happens. Yes, and okay, let's get some health back. Play the game a little bit. And it's back. It went back to where it's supposed to go. That's good. So that, again, continuity-wise, these are good things. Darn it. Okay, what happened there? That was a weird... that's like... It went back somewhere that's the wrong place. Like the start position was wrong. So it looks like one of our spawn points is incorrect. So that shouldn't be the case at all. Okay. Ah, see? Right there. How is it that I died twice? Like, where did it go? What spawn point did it go to? And I wonder where that is. I have to investigate that. So what's the spawn point now? Sorry, I did it for... I want to see what the spawn point is to the player. So in my player controller, we have a bit of a bug. The spawn point should be the original one, right? Because I didn't really pass that area, so I haven't really, yeah, spawn point 1. So that is way back here. So let's say that should be here. But that makes sense because I never passed that area, so therefore I never did the, I never got there naturally, and that's why it's the way it is. Okay, so let's go back to the character and play him. So this is where I want him to be. Just be a little bit more careful. I'll watch the mini map here to see if I can attack the... Good. When I get there, I'll just run across. Wonderful. I've turned this off so we can see this. So he's back. And this is there, so it should stay. Because it's within threshold. No one's there. Everything's fine. What about this one, though? So this is where I ride this out. And this is the test, right? And then what if I want to jump off? Right? So it should keep going. And that's what I wanted to see. That should go right up to the top. And then either stay there or come back down, right? So what it did was it stayed there, and that's okay. That's not exactly what I wanted, but because I went to the other end. But it did what I planned to do. It kept going, right? At least. So that's something that is cool. But I think what it is that, and we can talk about this because, sorry, I got a bit of a wires happening here, and I'm... Wow, that's pretty crazy. That's what happens when you have a small space like I do. All right. wrapped up in my controller. Okay, Michael says the player position is weirdly offsets. The spawn point needs to be more to the right. The checkpoint to your left when you spawn and the respawn closer. Weirdly offset. Why is that he's weirdly offset? Let's investigate that, Michael. Player is in the middle. Player cam should be, yeah, it's correct. Player cam. All the player look ahead points.
When you click on that player there, if you zoom in, it's like off of the actual player icon. So it'll spawn him over there, but he'll be more to the left of the position. So if you have the spawn points near the edge.
So are you talking about this?
Yeah, it's like, that's not where we spawn the player. We spawn it on the one that's inside it. Based off of
this one.
Player in the player, yeah. So we spawn it based on here, right?
Yeah.
This is the transplant that we changed. And if you look at our sprite and our collider, it's all to the left of it. So if it spawns close to the edge, the player can sometimes be a bit over it.
Yeah, and why is that? That's the thing. I think it's because this player contains, the way it works is there's extra stuff, extra information here that, because I have things like the look ahead point, which I don't need anymore. The look in front point, what's this? Player marker. What was that?
Acorn spawn.
Acorn spawn it is. Let's change the color of that to make it something different. Like a different color, right? Well, let's clean it up anyway. We have to clean up the player, but this is cleaning up time anyway. So let's clean up. So the look ahead point, which is this, we no longer need it because we're using a different kind of collider detection, kind of method. So the look ahead point then can be gone. Let's remove it from our player behavior, which can change the way that it spawns a little bit. Yeah, the look ahead point. We don't need it anyway. Look at front we do need, so we're kind of pruning a little bit. Look in front we do need, which is cool. So that didn't change much of anything. I think we're good there. But like you said, when I click onto this thing and if I go to the player, that's the health bar, and that's the dust trail, that's the player marker, and that's the acorn spawn. So the player itself is here, and even that, if you notice, is a little bit offset relative to the player because of all the stuff it has in it. So we have to make sure that the spawner is to the right more of the player, correct? Like this way. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. So this is kind of in the middle. That should be okay. Let's make it so that's like right to the middle. And what about these ones? That's okay. This one is okay, but maybe to the left, to the right a little bit more. And same thing goes with these are looking okay. I don't know why that's still not reason enough for us to go down into the drink with the way we did. Maybe we'll make it a little bit higher up because maybe it goes too low. And let's make sure these checkpoints are correct. So checkpoint is spawn point. That's another thing. What if the checkpoint and the spawn point were the same somehow? That would be also a cause of a problem. So checkpoint 1, that's spawn point 2, checkpoint 2, checkpoint 3. That looks okay. Let's try it again. I want to die and then see where I end up. Okay, that's how it should be. Not dying twice. Good. All right. So now my challenge is the other one. So this will right up to there. If I'm in the middle, it'll keep going. Right? That's what's going to happen. It'll keep going. So what we want is a mechanism where we want the thing to come back down to the start. Right? So we can assume if the player's not writing it, that we want to keep going until the threshold is at the start. The problem with it is it doesn't always work every single time, right? For example, where do we want it to go? Do we want it to go, is there a higher chance that this platform here will be here than it'll be here? We don't want it to go back here. The only time we want it to go back here is if the player is writing it. Whereas, in this case, the platform, if it's halfway up, we want it to come back down, because chances are if the player's gotten off the platform, chances are it's not early, right? The other way is we can always make it so that the platform tries to follow the player. So if the player's down here or closer to the start than it is to the end, then we can move the platform to accommodate the player. Again, all tricky combinations of checking, right? But not completely undoable, right? So the way to do it is, where is it closer? That is the place where the platform is going to keep going towards, right? So it's all relative to the player is what I'm saying. And that's where the platform will reset. So if I go back to the platform controller, right? Platform controller, or the checkpoint controller doesn't do anything. We can close this off. This works okay, just to keep it clean. Moving platform controller is where it keeps going. And this is a place where we can do some checking. So we can say, all right, well, if it's not one of these two, and if it's less than the threshold, it really depends on where the player is closest to. If the player is closest to the start, bring it to the start. Check to see if the player is closer to the start. Keep going until the player is closer to the start, right? If the player is not closer to the threshold, to the end, and if the player is closer there, then keep doing this one. So do the check, you know, as an example, depending on where the player is. Again, a little bit more tricky, but not entirely impossible to do. So again, moving platform, does the moving platform know about the player? And this is for each moving platform, by the way, moving platform controller. So there's a couple things we can do here. We don't want to get references for each of the platforms right now to the player, unless we're going to automatically find the player. So if we're going to do that, it'd be like something like this. Public player behavior, right? Player, and we're going to find the player. Now this is tricky again. So player is equal to find objects of type player behavior. So now this is a reference to the player object. So now that we know where the player is, what the player is, or where the player is, right? Then we can do our math. We can say, okay, well, which one is closer, right? What's the minimum distance between the player and the start position, or the player and the end position? So we can find the minimum distance. We can say var min. Actually, we want to kind of decide which one it is, right? Which one it is, if the start or the closer, right? Which one is it? So how would you want to code this, guys? I can. Michael says, when we respawn, can the player's velocity carry over on the respawn and clip through the ground? That's also possible. We can also, when we respawn, we also can turn player velocity to 0. That's not a problem. We can reset the velocity too. Yes, it will. And same thing with health. So how would we code this? So I want to basically get the distance between, I know we're running out of time here, guys. I want to get the distance between the player and the threshold, right? So I want to say, if the player is closer to the start, then we want to do something. If the player is closer to the end, we want to do something else. So let's try that. So depending on where the player is closest. So if player.transform.position, right? And we want to say the distance between those two things. So vector3.distance, but from player.transform.position and the start.position, if it is less than the vector3 distance between vector3 dot distance between the player dot transform dot position and the end dot position. If it's closer, if it's less, if the distance between to the player and the start position is lower, then what we want to do is we want to move this checkbox if this is true, right? Want to keep doing this until the vector3 distance from the transformed up position of the object and the start position, right, is the one that's going to happen. So we want to do the first one. So if not this part, right, if not this part. So if not this, then, and this can, guys, this is all timing and stuff, right? So keep doing this. Platform, blah, 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 right? Else, if it's the other way, if it's the thing, then we want to check to see if it's the other case. Else, we want to check to see if it's the other one. So where the, this one. So we don't always want to do it. If not vector3 distance up a transform position and end position is less than a threshold, right, then we want to do the same thing. So these are the checks. And so this way we don't always do it. Now, guys, it seems eerily similar one to the other, right? So we got to really be careful, and what we're checking for is to see which one's closer. If this one's closer, then do that one. If this one's closer, then do that one, right? And I want to make sure that the braces are enough, not too much, because otherwise we'll have too many and it won't work. All right, let's see how this works, and this should be it. So much for refactoring. We have no time. All right, so yeah. So I want to get on this, and when I'm on this, then what I want to do is I want to jump off, and hopefully it'll come back to me, and that'll be the test. Oh, see? Look at that, Michael. That was a weird thing, and look, it's like I got some additional. Like, I don't know what's happening, but my whole, that was weird. It's like, well, look at that. That's cool. Look at that. Look what happened there. So it kind of moved me, the player, not along with the thing. So let's see what happens here if I jump off. This is the test, really. So I jump off, and I'm here, and it should keep going and come back. All right, so it goes up, and it shouldn't stop because I'm closer to this point than I am to that point. It should come down again. Look, it comes down. All right, and it should stop right here because now it's closer here. And even though I'm not done, as soon as it gets here, it's going to stop. Nice. But this is a weird problem. Let's check and see what I coded there. So platformer plus equals to platform timer, yeah. Transform that position. Okay. I'm never changing the player. I don't understand. I'm trying to figure out what the little error is. And a lot of these distance checks, we can make a squared magnitude check equivalent. But again, we're just making it work right now. We're not refactoring. So move, what's move do? Move, change the distance, transform. Yeah, that's really weird. That's a weird glitch. All right, it's a weird glitch. Let's try that out again one more time. All right, so I'm at die, and then we die again, and now I'm sliding. This is the error that I was saying. Look, it's like I got momentum somehow, but then not really. It's like it continues to push me, and that is like super weird. What's happening there? But only when, and that's really weird too. Look how this changed. So here's checkpoints. Here's platforms. Where is the player? That is weird. Look at this. So the hierarchy is a little bit messed up. This bullets are cool. This all worked out nicely, and for the most part, it works the way I expect it to. But we got the player on the outside, but not the player on the inside. That is really weird. And here's the player camera. Here's the player health. Where is the player? Look at that. It's gone from the hierarchy. Let's go back to the scene for a second, and let's click on this thing. It's just going to kill the gizmo. One sec. So there is the player. Mini map camera I've got hooked onto. Acorn spawn. Oh, that's a mistake. Somehow the player is inside of the platform because the player didn't lose the transformed up position. They died. And let me just reset that. Yes. Okay. I understand now. All right. We never detach when we attach, exactly. So somehow the player died without detaching. All right. That is weird. But at least we figured out the problem. That's the problem. All right. So that's pretty cool. I'm sorry we're running overtime, guys. If you need to go, it's totally cool. I'm just going to fix this bug, and then I'm going to put it up on GitHub. So what's happening is, all right, so let's recall. So what's happening is when the player is on top of the platform, then now, if I look at the moving platforms, then the player is actually attached to one of the moving platforms, to the first one. And that's why we had that weird messing up thing. Look at that. So now, moving platform, even though the player died, the player is physically still connected to the moving platform. So that means that what we have to do is on the player controller, we have to detach. We never did that. We inactivated it, but we never did the detaching piece. So let's do that. See, little things, but we found it through playtesting, right? That's the idea behind it. So that's down in here. That's when we have on collision enter 2D, we attach, but when we exit, we don't detach, we're still connected. So what we need to do is we have to say, we have to clear parent. So transform dot we want to say parent, we want to clear parent, right? So I think, is it clear, or if it's just parent is equal to null? I'm trying to think. I think it's just parent is equal to null, or set parent null. Set parent null, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. I think if you do that, then that will do it. Let's try that out. So again, we're there, and that's what causes some of the issues. So now we can clearly see that this is, here, let's make sure we kill this guy. But when we died last time is when we had a problem. And And now we don't have that problem anymore because the player is out here and the player should not be out here. It should be here. Yeah, it's good enough, but I mean, it messes up our hierarchy a little bit. But again, these are little bugs that we can fix. Really great thing is that this thing moved back to join us, right? Even though it found an error, it did what it was supposed to do. So I'm getting a thing that says, should we put the parent back to the player folder that you have? Health bar and the camera already follow, so don't notice the decoupling of the hierarchy. Yeah, no, I know. That's where it should be. The challenge is that it's not the player that it's like we parented to this thing and then we have to go back to this thing, almost like the previous parent or whatever you want to call it. We only want to put it on that platform when we're on the platform, and then we can put it back. So yeah, there's little fixes we can do. We can make a reference to this player, which is the parent. Player's parent, right? And we can make a little script for that. So it's not a big issue. Again, a little bit convoluted and it needs cleaning up a lot. But header, controls, player ability, impulse sounds, dust trails, screen shake, acorn firing, and then parenting. Let's call it parenting. Where we want to say that public transform, we'll say parent, so as we keep track of the parent. Health bar and camera. Don't notice the coupling here. It just seems to work okay if we never change the parent to transform. Yeah. When you cross the platform, no, you'll have issues in other cases because it'll move, the platform move, it'll knock you off. So anyway, so this is the parent, and what we want to do is we want to go back to this one. So let's just go and reform. That's not going to change. That's just going to be a reference. So that's what's that going to be. So that's parenting. We're going to make the parent this thing. All right. And then what we want to do is when we go back, we want it to go back to the parent transform. I mean, that's a simple way of doing it. Store the parent, and then when we go back, instead of declaring it, we're going to say to parent.transform. Parent. That should do it. Again, not the cleanest solution by far, but definitely will continue. Let's see how that works. So again, we're going to go here. And right now, it's part of that, but we want it to go back here. And as soon as we comment them off, now we're back. Cool. That's good enough for me. I think this is, we fixed a bunch of bugs. We squashed some bugs. We made the platforms a little bit nicer. I think we did a lot. And there's like, we can continue going with small little bugs and additions to, gameplay. It takes a while, and every little bit helps. We've been developing this game for weeks, if you think about it. I've personally spent probably in the every 3 hours a week with you from let's say from week 8. So think about that, right? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So that's like 6 weeks. At least 3 times 6, that's 18 hours at least that we spent working on this thing, plus let's say an additional, my own personal time outside of class, probably another 10 hours planning and doing whatever. So we're looking at 28 to 30 hours, let's say 30 hours. So theoretically, you could probably plan a game like this, and with a bit more planning and reducing some of the overhead and rework, you could probably do this within about a week, I would say. So you make a little game, a little first level, a prototype within about a week in real time. Okay, and that is, I would say, pretty good. That's why Unity is great for rapid prototyping. Let's save this. Let's save the project, and this is a great place to stop. So I'll say git add dot git commit -m, and we'll say fixed platform return issue git push. Okay, so that kind of, fixed a few other little things. All right, and that is the end of our time when it comes to the platforming stuff. Where are we for next week? Like we said, assignment 2 is due Sunday. Next week we're going to start doing our final test review when we get together. If you guys decide to get together on Tuesday, that's great, but you don't have to. Like I said, from 12 to 3 for you guys, and 9 to 12 for the other group. It's completely optional. We get together here only for any kind of feedback or any help with your final tests. Okay, and that's all we have. Thank you so much, guys, for I probably won't have a chance to say thank you to everyone again, so I'll say thank you online for a great semester. I had a lot of fun. I had a blast making this thing, and lots of learnings, and we're going to continue some of the same topics. This is our foundation for next semester. Next semester we're going to do everything in 3D. We're going to work a lot more with Blender and those kind of tools as we bring additional tool sets into the whole the project. I think I'm really excited to do it next semester. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and next semester will be more project based as opposed to individual assignments like we've done this semester. So really great work, guys. Thank you so much for everything. I'm looking forward to seeing your final assignment 2 as well as your final test. Okay, any questions for me before we go? All right, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording now, and we'll say goodbye. All right, guys, any questions before we go? I stopped recording.